Rocky and I travel the world a lot. We're planning a trip in December for the Le Web conference in Paris. And we find that when we're trying to think about where we want to go and who we want to see and what we want to do, the tools on the web are totally inadequate for doing that. Today we're at TripTrace, which has a unique answer to that. And we're going to talk about travel and planning. So who are you?
Who am I? I'm Michael Rubin. I'm the CEO of TripTrace. And let's see, my background, sort of had a long career of sort of entrepreneurial things. I started at Lucasfilm back in the 80s and made movies for many years in Los Angeles. And probably the most relevant experience I've had recently was a number of years at Netflix. It's sort of a director of the website. And you know, there's been other things in there, but that's pretty much who I am.
So I'm interested in your company because I'm interested in mobile, location, traveling, and it all mixes together in your company, right?
It's true. You know, a lot of...
Which is TripTrace.
TripTrace, right? Yeah. You know, originally we were PlaceBook. We're now, TripTrace, and that's a...
Mark Zuckerberg slapped you on the head.
Just got whacked upside the head with a newspaper. Don't get me started on that. But we're TripTrace, and you know, so many travel startups, and it's a very busy space. We don't have any illusions that we're the first people in travel, but I think we come to it from a different perspective, and partly what we bring to it is not only a feeling about making a real consumer product that people can use all the time, that's really easy and sort of delightful to use, but I don't think, in a lot of ways, I don't think of this like a travel site. Yeah. We're really a location-based service. You know, we think that there will be emergent properties when people start to organize all of their location information in one place that we almost can't imagine. You know, I mean, if you think about social networks, and if someone said, oh, I can connect you with your friends, 10 years ago you might have said, well, I got 10 friends and I talk to them all the time. Why would I need a tool for that? And there would be nothing that would have made you realize what it could mean to have 1,000 friends or 500. And something different happened. I think location is a lot like that. And when people are able to put all of their location information and pull off the silos and just say, my photos, my personal Rolodex, all of this stuff is together in a map, there are going to be emergent properties from that. And the killer application for all of that, obviously, is travel. It just, if you're going somewhere you don't know, it can be very useful to look at the kinds of things you do where you do know, because it knows what you like. And as you go back to places you visit or you want to share this information, it's like a historical document. It goes from being a planning tool to an actual actionable tool you use when you're doing something, to part of memorializing your trip, sharing your photos and looking back on what you did last week. All of those things are what happened when you really organize by location.
Well, let's talk about the different kinds of travel and work in on this, because it's a new product, and therefore you haven't seen it before. You haven't seen anything like it before.
And it'll seem strange, maybe. You know?
I don't know that it'll seem strange, but you know, I just went to LA for a summer vacation, and we did a lot of what we're going to do in TripTrace. We did it all over the web, right? We had a bookmarking tool to capture the hotels and things. We had a Google map, where we could overlay, you know, where we wanted to go, and we had...
It's work. It's a ton of work, and it's almost universally frustrating for people. And I think the reason it's frustrating today is that you have to go to 100 different sites, and every trip is a different 100 sites. It's not like you just kind of always go back there. There's a couple you might use. People love TripAdvisor and Kayak, or there's tools you kind of are drawn to. Hipmunk, which is very hip. Yeah. And that will change over time, and we want to be somewhat agnostic to that. We're sort of the organizing principle of all this. But the challenge for people is not only I have to go to 50 sites and organize the bookmarks for all of these things, but I want to mix it with information that is not on the web. It's my information, my trace, where I went running yesterday, where I checked in on Foursquare, which obviously a Foursquare check-in is sort of public, but maybe there's places I should be able to benefit that I went to Kmart get a coupon for having gone there. It should know that about me. And I don't really want to tell everybody I went to Kmart. I'm just, not really in my schema, right? but at the same time, my location data is valuable to me, and I think there's a tendency today that we've taken social geo, which is this hot, wonderful space, and think that those two words are equivalent, that social equals geo, and it's not the case. Geo is geo, right? And it is a wonderful, it's like alphabetizing. Geo is an incredibly good organizing principle for tons of information. And I don't care whether it's social or not social. I don't care whether it's public information from Eventful or my private Rolodex, right? Yeah. And so by being able to pull all that information together, I think that it will confer an incredible and really a magical kind of value for a user,
There's different kinds of travel, right? One kind of travel is the kind that Rocky and I usually do. There's a conference.
Partying in France? Is that like?
Yeah. The reason we're partying in France is because there's a conference there.
Right.
And we found out about the conference. I probably got invited to speak at it, or we're invited to cover it as journalists, and we're going there. Like I'm going to Davos. I'm going there to cover it as a news, and it's a hard and fast. I have to be there on that day. I have to be in the hall from 8 in the morning to 6 p.m.
Right.
I have already dinners that I have to be at. There's not very much serendipity there.
To those anchor points, there's these anchor points in your trip.
Right,
Okay.
but I might come a day early and have some serendipity, a vacation day around that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a very different kind of travel than going to Laguna. My wife and I are already talking about going to Laguna Beach again next year. Where do we want to go? What hotel do we want to stay at? Do we want to
go back where you went, or?
And so tell me how this tool helps in both situations: the event travel and the
Sure.
The serendipitous
Those are good examples. It's really very common what your experience is. So much of travel is anchored in something. It's not just like, let's go on a vacation to the south of France, but it's, I want to go to the World Series, or I want to go to the Sundance Film Festival. There's something that makes you go to Park City in January, and it sets the tone. It sets kind of the range. It narrows certain types of options, and then you want to build around that. And so we really, like I said, are somewhat agnostic. You can go to the Sundance Film Festival page or the Davos page and of the web, and there's information there you need for your trip, and maybe you've been emailed certain bits of the information you need, and all of that you want to kind of stick into your folder, put it on your map of Davos, right? And you don't really know the area. You couldn't do a Google search of the area because you don't know what cities are around there, but you could kind of draw a circle around it on a map. That's a nice sort of fuzzy way to sort of say, what events are happening out there in this period of time? Now, these events that come up, or these ideas that you find as you're surfing the web, you also want to put together with the stuff that's hard-coded on what you're doing in Davos. The magic of the site, I think what people will find is that we make a really natural transition from information that you've just emailed into your account or grabbed off the web or pinned to a map because for whatever reason, and those are functional units that you can take over into an itinerary and just sort of say, oh, here's my email about that. I need that on day one. Here's some notes of stuff I want to do. I don't even know when I'm doing that. I just kind of stack them up here, unscheduled. And I can also assign a dollar value to these things and drag them into a budgeting tool.
So if you go to the best restaurant in Paris, you know that's going to be a $400 dinner, right?
Really? I'm going with you.
Okay, you got to plan these things, and budget for them.
And you want to schedule. That's scheduled. You decided we're going to have one really great meal, and so I'm going to actually enter this into the calendar and the budget that I've got a huge meal here. And then there's other stuff that's just, I'm downtown and I don't need to, it doesn't make you do anything.
Yeah.
It's a tool for organizing very disparate information that is related to location, okay? And because you can budget it, you can choose to really be rigorous, and many sort of power moms, which are a big component of the users of vacation travel, they like to leave town with a very rigorous itinerary. We're flying here, we're going to that hotel, I found a bunch of things for us to do, okay? And that's one kind of person. Or, business traveler, I've got a hotel and a flight and I'll figure out the rest when I'm there. However, when I happen to be there, I might want easy access to news, what's going on in town. I'm not going to schedule those, I'm not going to budget those, but I want to have access to anything I've done. My friends who live in that city, I always forget where they live, and I realize oh, someone's driving me to some dinner somewhere, and I'm there early, and I didn't even realize that my friends live right nearby.
Yeah.
A Google search on the restaurant doesn't tell you that because you don't have all the pieces of information you need. So we really wanted to simultaneously have a way to get everything into a map, have it in a format that's really easy to organize and very flexible. So if you've got one day before your trip at Davos you want to schedule, you book that, and then the rest is sort of hard-coded for you.
If you're planning vacation travel, you don't want something that looks like Google Calendar, because that feels cold and work-like. And you're on vacation, you're supposed to be sitting on a beach drinking Mai Tais or something,
It's true. Google Maps is great, Google Calendar. There are tools out there, but we felt that by putting everything together in one place, it's easy and it's private. And so one of the reasons that I didn't pull you into the private beta on day one is that I know your passion for social, and our social tools are something that's coming up, and so I didn't want to make a huge deal about it.
Well, let's talk about that. So on my trip, I checked in on Foursquare at a lunch with Ashton Kutcher, which is a great story, right?
And that's a good story.
He checked in too, but I can't look at that on Foursquare. It's in the database somewhere, but it's gone. It's out of our view. We can't search for January 8th at lunch. Where were we? And I would love to have that in my book where, hey, Ashton and I had lunch. I have pictures, right? I have pictures, I have video.
All of that should be put together.
And the place we were actually at should be findable, right?
Yes.
Because that was his favorite hamburger place in LA. I forget the name of it. I need to go back.
I would like to know that. Yeah, you should be able to do that. We currently interface with a handful of sort of public APIs, photos and events and news and things like that. But mostly that's to prove the case, how powerful it is as you start putting these together. And as you can connect this to your Foursquare account and to your TripIt account and to OpenTable, anything that's sort of location tagged, realize what happens when you are able to put those all together. The trace data is obviously where we're going. We're TripTrace, and right now it's a little tough on your phone to just really be GPS tracking yourself. But imagine how nice when you have these contextual maps that it's pouring in where you went, and you just go dial back through the days, and that is exactly what we have. Anticipated doing.
We're sticking so much location information in all these silos. There's TripIt knows where I'm flying.
Yes.
Facebook knows where I checked in or sent some status messages about my kids, and it has location now, right? And I can say I'm here. And Foursquare, I checked in 900 times in the last 2 years, right? And on and on. Twitter now, you can turn on location on Twitter, right? And every tweet has a location if you turn it on. None of that gets aggregated together anywhere except for on you.
TripTrace, I know, and it's, and I think people, I go into iPhoto, and I use iPhoto, and I love the map, you can go in and you organize all your photos by map, but it's missing that thing, which is I want to make this is my trip, and I have other things I want to pull together and share it in a different way, and it isn't enough having all of those sites do such a nice job of taking their location tag stuff and maybe revealing it to you, but they just are missing that magic sauce, right?
So let's talk about the tactics or the specifics. When is this release?
We're in private beta right now, and my hope is that by Halloween that we take the wrapper off and let people start messing around.
Okay.
It'll be like a Halloween present.
And it's a free app?
It's a free app. Monetization is just as lead generation.
No, it's an app, right? You have to load it on a Mac?
No, it's not an app. It's a website.
Okay.
It's a website.
Okay.
So you can access it from your iPad. It'll be cooler when our iPad app is out, but it's just a nice, we know that we haven't built the mobile side of it. Everything that you do on the website totally needs to be mobile with you, right? I've got this map. I want to pull out my map. I'm traveling, and here I am, and I want to look at Paris, and not just like a blank map of Paris, but it's isn't it? I mean, we've lost that history that people used to savor, which is you pull out your old maps of a trip you took, and it's got your routes on it and the things you wrote in the margin.
Remember the AAA maps where they would draw
the triptych?
Yeah.
I love those. And I was a kid who had all those maps, and I kept them for all my trips. And when National Geographic would show up, I would put those maps on the wall, and I would write on them, and I'd stick pins in them and all that. And that's gone. And we lost that for this sort of sense how efficient it is to have a blank map and you can put anything on it real quick, and then it's ephemeral and it goes away. And there's a certain power and convenience to that. I don't deny that at all, but I don't think there's any reason to have lost this really great, it's not just a tradition, but it's really functional feature of Maps, which is it organizes that stuff. It's a historical document now.
Yeah.
It went from being a planning document to a useful tool while you went somewhere to this piece of your memorabilia on the trip and a great thing you hand someone, and then they've got a lot of data. And
Is it all printable?
Yeah. In fact, the printable versions of all this stuff will be available before the mobile versions, just because you got to get out of the system and take your maps around. But the idea is to integrate in a film, my background's in film, right? Pre-production, production, and post-production. To integrate sort of the idea and planning parts with the mobile things you need when you're on a trip, with all of that sharing and memory stuff on the other end. And usually for if you go to a website today for sharing something, you sort of start again. At each stage today, you have to start again, and you've already done 3/4 of the work, and so that should kind of come along with you. I've booked a flight. It knows where I am and where I'm going and the dates. That should be a module that goes to where I'm looking at hotels. It should go to when I'm looking at restaurants and so on. So we think there's a really good opportunity here.
Does it help you buy flights? You're not really competing with the hipmunks, the kayaks.
No, I love kayaks and the hipmunks. And we really embrace all the innovation going on in that space. The thing is that some number of people will use any number of different sites. We just want to make it easy for them to pull all that data together. So we do lead generation. We send you off to various partners and affiliates, and you can book stuff there, and then and we'll get better at making money off of all that. But I think the first most important thing is to start to show people what happens when they start organizing their information this way, and we will confer increasing value very quickly and show what that really does for your life.
How are you guys funded? Tell me a little bit about the fundamentals of the company.
We're funded. It's like we're funded. We were seed funded in March by when the company was created from another company, Public Earth, that it kind of grew from, and it was started again, recapitalized. We'd always wanted to take the sort of public wiki location data. Our vision early on was always to have sort of this giant free access database of locations, which we still have. The Public Earth Wiki exists, and it's one of the APIs we use, just like all the other APIs. So we were funded a seed round in March, and we're always looking for money because that's our job, right?
Yeah. Tell me about the infrastructure of the company.
No, we're all over here.
I'm talking about the technical infrastructure.
The technical infrastructure. Tom, the technical infrastructure. It's we use Rackspace. I mean, it's a slice host kind of site. What's a technical infrastructure? It's written in Ruby on Rails with front end Java stuff. Tom, you want to shout out anything about our technical infrastructure? Postgres database, right? Yeah, clearly, I'm not the engineer.
Yeah.
But
we'll go over and
we'll talk to Tom. Yeah.
The dream part of it.
When you go to the site today and you look around, what you will see is that it has this book user experience. And one of the rationales for that was that trip planning is a number of different types of tasks. And if you try to use sort of traditional web motifs where buttons look like buttons and they have this kind of standard structure, it was our feeling that it would be an enormously complicated kind of thing. This is not just like a toy that has one button and you're done, right? It is a tool, and we're trying to balance being powerful with being incredibly simple, and that's work that is our work, right? But by making these different books, it's really clear when you're in Fantasyland versus Frontierland versus Adventureland. Like, it looks different. That it may be the same data, it's passing seamlessly between all these books, but when you're in your atlas, it works like an atlas. It has tabs, it has an index in the front, it has stuff in the back, and you can kind of dog your stuff. And then when you go to a travel notebook, it looks like a notebook. So you don't have to keep reminding the user where they are in the navigation because it's sort of self-evident. And so it was our belief that while in some ways this is limiting, the UI, and we've had feedback that it's like, can't you make it bigger and do sort of traditional web stuff? It's really an art to make stuff simple. And sometimes being forced into, you only get this much screen real estate, you can't pile millions of tabs on this because it's just going to get cluttered, is a nice forced discipline to remember that, power users want a million tools, but my mom wants one button, right? Yeah. And so somewhere between the one button and a million tools is the right kind of consumer product. really, the early users are going to be power users, and they may or may not be happy with like the way it's designed. But our sense is that it's far more fun and incredibly distinctive a website.
Well, I'm looking forward to using it because one, we travel a lot, and two, we have no good tools to mix the calendar, the atlas, the map with all these new services that are evolving very quickly. You know,
Yeah.
the Foursquares, the Plancast, the TripIts. You know,
Yeah.
I want to see how you match in and all those new services where we're pouring our location data. So
That's good.
So where do we find you on the web?
TripTrace.com,
Yeah.
and you can always kind of follow our blog, which we try not to make it just a boring business blog. I'm a blogger by passion, and we really talk about what it's like here and combine that with the release notes and ideas, and we obviously take a lot of feedback from people. This is
You guys on Twitter and Facebook?
We're on Twitter and Facebook both. I think we probably got 1,000 fans on Facebook, and Twitter we're TripTracer, because some young buck has TripTrace. And of course, you can still type placebook.com and it'll take you to us.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you, man.
Thank you.